Welcome back to Radio Entrepreneurs. I'm Jonathan Freedman, and our next guest up is Scott Sambucci. He's the founder of SalesQualia. Scott, welcome to Radio Entrepreneurs.
Jonathan, thanks so much for having me here.
Thank you for coming on. Why don't you tell our listeners and viewers a little bit about what your company does?
Yeah, so SalesQualia, we're a sales coaching and implementation system program. So what that means is we work with early stage B2B tech startups. So we're out in Northern California, Silicon Valley's right around the corner. And one of the challenges that we help our clients overcome is those early stage companies, when you're trying to grow from your first customers, your first revenue, and really get to that place where you're starting to scale operations and scale your sales so you can make the impact that you want to make with your company. A lot of founders struggle with that. A lot of founders are technical, have technical background, or they have domain expertise in their certain vertical or their industry, but they've never really built a sales organization. They've never really built sales and selling systems.
Or to interject, they have a good relationship with somebody and they have a first client, but how do you replicate that?
Yeah, we call that founder magic. That the founder can go in there, whether you have network or introductions, and you can get in there and sort of sprinkle that founder magic and get those sales to get the company off the ground. You get revenue in the door. You're like, hey, I think I've got something here. But to really get to that place of impact in an industry to solve the problem that you're out to solve, you've got to build systems. You've got to build a team. And again, most founders have never built sales teams. They've never built sales systems. And that's what I've done personally over 20 years time with 3 different tech startups, taking them from their first, basically zero revenue to the first couple millions in revenue with those companies now raising over, a couple $100 million in venture capital.
So help us understand a little bit about what the process looks like. Engaging with a client and you walk them through. Obviously, there's probably a lot of discovery. You ask a lot of questions about their product and their market, but where does it go from there?
Yeah, so we always start with the diagnosis of what we call the 9 sales accelerators. So if you think about a sales process, like a very, very basic rudimentary sales funnel, it's like at the top, you want to have leads coming into the funnel. And then those leads should turn into sales opportunities, which are kind of your open deals and future customers. And then there's a conversion where you turn that sales pipeline into your paying customers. And around those 3 big steps in the sales process, we identify these 9 sales accelerators that start with filling the funnel, establishing your authority voice, how do you qualify leads, plus 6 others. And what we do is we look at the current state of a company's process around these 9 accelerators. We score those in sort of a red, yellow, green, meaning like red is like, we got nothing. We have no idea what we're doing. Green is like, oh, we're doing pretty well here. Yellow is there's some room for improvement. And then from there, we can really zero in and identify which of those accelerators are the most important for a company or for a founder to start working on next in order to get to that next stage of growth.
And does that provide them really with, for lack of a better term, a roadmap towards replicating the sales process for them?
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, those 9 accelerators are designed to accelerate sales. And so if you have lots of red, your sales aren't going to get anywhere past where you are right now. And so we think of it as like, if you have some clear reds, let's at least get those reds into yellows, so to speak. Like, let's get them functioning at a basic form. And those
positive momentum, moving in the right direction.
Every journey of 1,000 miles starts with the first step, right? So certainly, like, at least getting something functioning, a version 1.0 of that part of your sales process. And then the places that are green, a lot of times it's surprising. Founders don't even realize they're doing certain things really well. They just are like, oh, that's the way I do it. And I'm like, yeah, but you're doing it really well. It could be, for example, like they enjoy spending time on LinkedIn and they do a good job of creating connections and creating conversations which turn into sales leads. Well, it's actually a really hard skill to teach. And some people inherently are doing it well. And so as part of our job is also showing them what they're doing well so they don't stop doing the things that are working. So we look at those greens just as much as we look at those reds.
Now, you say that you work with predominantly early stage tech companies.
Yeah.
Do they often have that named sales resource in-house? Do they have to have that scale where they've got a dedicated sales resource, or is it a founder team? What does the mix look like?
Yeah, so we typically work with, when we say early stage in our world of Silicon Valley, that usually means a seed funded company. So it's usually a couple $1 million in seed round funding, or a Series A. So Series A is usually anywhere from $5 to $10 million in funding. The earlier stage companies, it's usually the founding team. They may have a person or two that's helping out in some way, some capacity, a person we call it a utility person. Maybe that person's doing a little bit of marketing and doing a little bit of sales, and they're the person that will help set up the conference when we have conferences again. But mostly it's the founders that have gotten that company off the ground. And the next stage in their growth is going from getting that founder activity and turning those into those repeatable systems around those 9 sales accelerators. Once you have the systems and you have repeatability, then you can get to scalability. You can't jump from, early stage to scale until you have the core systems in place to serve as the foundation for how you're going to run the company, run sales, and manage the team around you.
So I know this is a loaded question, but if you could identify, top 1, 2, 3 challenges that you've experienced in working with your clients, what are some of the barriers that you see towards getting clients along the path towards success?
Yeah, it's funny you say that. We just did a half-day workshop for our clients yesterday, and one of the biggest challenges that a lot of people face is a reluctance to do outbound. It's the reluctance to actually go out and tell their story and tell their message. And there's a lot of layers psychologically as to why people are afraid of that. Part is just like, most of that is going to be rejection or no responses. But really it's a sense like, I don't want to bother people. Like, I know they're running a business just like me, and I don't want to, I hate it when I get bad emails, and I don't want to send out bad emails. And so what we tell people is like, well, number one, if you feel like you're sending bad emails, then stop. Let's work on your messaging. That's an area we can work on. But number two, let's remember why you started this company in the first place. You probably left some cushy office job or some corporate job. You saw a problem in the market and say, hey, nobody else is solving this problem the right way. So you've left that comfort, you've left that security, and now you're dedicating your life to solving this problem for those future customers. If you don't go out and tell them about help them understand their problem, if you don't go out and tell them how you might be able to help them, you're actually letting them down. So you have to kind of turn that mindset away from like, I'm bothering people, to like, no, this is almost like my crusade. Like, this is my job in life, is to go out and talk about this problem and find people who might have this problem so I can go out and solve this problem for them. There should be nothing more that energizes you than that thought process.
I'm smiling because it's spoken like a true sales evangelist. Somebody who really has spent their career, as you said, in the past couple of decades, really speaking towards why sales are important. And I think it's fascinating. Well, it's fascinating because you must experience all the time, and not to stereotype or say, engineers are great at building things that they think people want, yet they're shy when it comes to promoting why they built these things. And so it's always fascinating to work with people that have the technical capabilities or the vision for the product and think that, the old adage, if we build it, they will come. Well, reality doesn't work that way too often. You've got a great company if that were reality for most people. But 90% of the companies have to work hard to get those customers, or to even be aware of their product and then convert them into customers.
Well, and that really is a second, challenge that a lot of founders have is, the sense like, well, if, as you said, if I build it, they will come. I think that the challenge that we have is this confirmation bias out in the market when they see companies like Slack, for example, which has obviously taken over the corporate communication world. This perception, well, Slack doesn't have salespeople. It was all viral, and one engineer starts using it and everybody else in the company uses it, and then they tell their friends. Yeah, those things do happen, but you only hear of the stories because they're so unique. The other 99.9% of enterprise B2B selling, companies that are successful, it's because they went out there and figured out how to sell their stuff, how to go out and talk to customers about their problems, show how you might be able to help them, and then create that partnership so that they can get those people up and running with your solution. And so number one is being reluctant to do the selling. And then number two is not doing the selling at all.
Yeah, well, it's often been said that it takes a certain mindset and, that sort of acceptance of rejection, as you talked about, and human nature is we don't like being rejected, right? So if I'm faced with an environment where I feel like I'm being rejected, I'm more likely to do something that I'm getting gratification from.
Well, and one of the ways that we help people think about this, and I think it's useful for anybody really, when you look at a marketplace, there's a really great sales book. I have it on my shelf. A guy named Chet Holmes wrote a book about 20 years ago called The Ultimate Sales Machine. And he did a lot of research, and there's been other research that's corroborated this, that when you look at an entire marketplace, if you take your ideal customer, like who are the people you're targeting with your solution, 90% of that marketplace is just currently not buying. They're not buying your thing. They're not buying anybody's thing. They're just not in the market. They're not in the market. The timing's not right. They don't have the budget. It's not the top priority. They've got 5 other things that they're worried about. There's just not what we call in market. There's only 10% of your target customers that are in market at any one point in time. And so people talk about why sales has so much rejection. It's not really rejection. It's just that people are like, yeah, I get it. They might be really interested in what you're doing, and they might really love your solution, but they're like, yeah, we're just not in a buying mode right now. We might be in 6 months or in 12 months, but right now we're not. And so one of the ways you can overcome this fear of rejection or this reluctance to go out and sell is just remember when you're doing that first sale, that first selling activity, it's actually not selling at all. All you're doing is sorting. When you're going out and communicating with your market, what you're trying to do is sort out who are people that might want to engage with you or who are in that 10% that are possibly in market. And the other 90%, that's why you have a marketing list. And that's why you do your drip campaigns down the road. You say, great, glad to hear that you're not in the market right now. Thanks for letting me know. Come back to you in 6 months. In the meanwhile, can I add you to my newsletter? And so I think that really relieves the pressure. Like I got to send that email and that email is going to really sell my product. It's like, no, that first outbound email, even those first few meetings that you're having with your prospective customers is really just about you and them sorting about whether or not who's in market and who's not. And I think when you have that mindset, it really does relieve the pressure of like, I got to go sell.
Well, and it's really fascinating too, when you think about that statistic. It's like, realizing that 1 in 10 people that you talk to are really qualified prospects in the true sense of, they're ready, willing, and able to buy, right, as opposed to the 90%. And it's less about rejection than it's just the timing or whatever the variables are isn't right.
That's
and
right.
That's okay.
It's totally fine. And then even in that 10%, right, there's going to be some of those people are going to buy your competitor simply because it's just a better fit for them. Just like some people are going to buy your product because you're a better fit for them. And so it's really about just identifying problem, getting specific on how you can solve that problem, and then identifying where there's a fit, and if there's a fit, there's a sale.
So I know that you've carved out this wonderful niche where you guys are located in the tech world on the West Coast. Any particular reason you don't work with large established companies that probably have some of the similar challenges that you have, even though they may have processes, but challenged by sales and growing their firms?
Yeah, I mean, so for me, I moved out to Silicon Valley 20 years ago because I wanted to be part of that world. I worked at a very large publicly traded company called Pearson Education, and I got attracted to the tech scene. And what I found is that, there's such a difference in impact that I can make working with an entrepreneur. When we look at our clients, and we have some clients we work now with for 3 or 4 years, and we started working with them, they were at $200,000 in revenue. And we have a client now this year, after 4 years of working with them, they just made the Inc. 5000 list for the first time. They debuted at number 918. So, and I was just talking about this yesterday, where 4.5 years ago, the 4 founders sat around with some whiskey and said, we might have to shut down this thing. We can't get it to go. And to see that path, it's like such a different impact to think about those 4 founders trying to figure out, should we keep going or should we quit? To go from that to seeing them hit that Inc. 5000 list in 4 years' time. It's just such a different level of personal, like selfishly, like I feel that gratification to know that we've really, really made a difference in that business. And
well,
that's
and
for me different than,
I'm sure the client acknowledgement that comes along with that too, that you guys were, critical accelerator towards their success.
Sure. They're one of our biggest champions, of course.
That's
and
great.
So it's a bigger impact for us to work with a company like that than to do sales training at, some other big publicly traded company. So that's why we do it.
Great. Well, it's a fabulous story, and it sounds like you're continuing to have great impact in the marketplace. And we can talk all about how we could probably do a whole segment on how the pandemic has shifted some of that a little bit, and maybe the urgency and the challenges. But we don't have time for that today. It's been a real pleasure talking with you, Scott.
Thanks, Jonathan.
Our guest on Radio Entrepreneurs is Scott Sambucci. Scott, if people want to get in touch with you and SalesQualia, what's the best way for them to reach out to you?
Yeah, so the best way to reach out to us, just go over to our website, SalesQualia, QUALIA.com. And what I encourage people to do is I wrote a book last year that was debuted on Amazon as a #1 new release. And the book is called Stop Hustling, Start Scaling. And it's all about this journey, getting out of that hustle mode and into scale mode. And if you go to the website, you can actually download a full, complete PDF version of the book, completely free. It's not like free plus shipping and handling, completely free, full copy of the book. Just pop in your email address. We'll send you a copy of that book. And that will give you some core frameworks that you can use as an early stage company, as a growing company, to think about how you get to repeatability and then scalability. So that's the best place to go, salesqualia.com. Grab a copy of the book, and we can start a conversation from there.
Well,
thanks,
appreciate
Jonathan.
the conversation. Appreciate your time and the insight as well. Thanks so much, Scott, and wish you continued success, and stay safe out there in California.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
All right, and we'll be right back with another segment on Radio Entrepreneurs.